So yeah, a reminder for this meeting is that let's for any status updates that don't need particular attention or isn't in need of discussion or help, let's just refer to the wiki. So let's save the precious meeting time that we have, since this is recorded and we were expecting our community to take part of it and read it. Let's be mindful of that and keep this concise and only talk about the stuff the stuff that we need to discuss. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened. I lost the agenda. So here we go. Oh, did we actually switch to Etherpad already? Great.
Yep, I
I didn't
switched
know that.
this over to try it.
I just posted that in the thread today, so I wasn't sure that we already made a decision. That's great. Okay, so we have SUMO development update. Do we have Ricky? Does he even know that we started?
No,
Oh
I
yeah,
pinged him.
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's another thing that we need to figure out how we can get. And of course UX, we won't have UX because Brom moved to New Zealand, so it's 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something there right now.
So if there are any questions about the development part, or they can at least try to answer those.
Yeah, I have a question. So there was something about we're going to start focusing on the visual design. And I guess I didn't look at all the bugs that are in the next sprint yet, but things like, sidebar navigation stuff, or like, are we doing that already? And how is that going to not show up on localized stuff? What kind of visual things are we going to do?
So at first you won't actually see those visual parts. We will try to try to get them done before we switch to the new design.
I got you.
For the L10N view, what will happen is actually I went through all the mockups that we have, and the only thing that's going to be different is mainly the main navigation bar, which doesn't exist for localized views because we don't have a product picker or topic landing pages. So other than that, it will be pretty much the same. And if we can do the sidebar for localized views, I'm not sure if that's possible, but it wouldn't change anything. We should still be able to do that.
So I'm sorry, so I'm not quite clear. So they're gonna build things. So we will start seeing some changes, like the header is gonna change, the footer is gonna change. Yeah.
Right.
But some things like sidebars or whatever, that will be like, I don't know what, waffled off for now?
Yeah, exactly. So, we will implement this not template by template. It won't be start page first, article page second, and then product part, but it will be about the modules. Right. So the sidebar shows up on different parts. We will do that. Then we will have a base template. Then we will have product pickers. And we will switch that on as it makes sense. Like not as you won't see the sidebar appearing on the old design.
Right.
So that will be switched on together.
Okay.
Does it make sense? Does it answer the question?
That makes sense to me. It answered my question, I think.
Okay. All right.
All right. So everyone, take a look at the wiki for any updates around development and UX. And let's move on. So actually what I did, I made some reorgs of the page right now. Since Brom is not going to call in anymore, I figured we can move up Roundtable higher up. So the only reason why we have SUMO development update first, originally, was so Ricky could just call in and then drop out when he was done with that part. I'm not even sure if that still applies, so it might be that we would like to move Roundtable up to the very top rather than having it.
I think that we should start with Roundtable, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of think that I think so too. But and that would also give us some lead time to ping Ricky so he can join in on the actual time where he needs to be part of it to save up some of his time. So I agree. and I'm making some changes right away. This is so easy to change with Etherpad. I don't understand why we haven't done this ages ago. It really helps. So yeah, roundtable. The first item is SUMO RC meeting. This is just a reminder that the meeting is this Thursday. There's a link on the Etherpad to the agenda. So I don't think that there's any particular discussion or topics that need discussion in this meeting. Is that correct, Satab?
Yeah, that's correct.
What time is 4 p.m. UTC?
I have no idea. Yeah, can we use PST instead? Like PST and maybe Central European time or something? I mean, UTC is like this universal time that no one gets. It's like universal time for aliens. It's like no one gets it.
Especially 4 p.m. It's 4 p.m. in the UK, basically.
Oh, it's UK time?
Yeah, so it's 9 p.m. in the US, I think.
Okay,
No, it's 4 a.m. I'm misreading. 4 p.m. It's 9 in the morning in the US.
Now, as far as I know, UTC is not.
It's
It doesn't
8 a.m.
take summertime into account. So during the summer, UTC and UK time zone should be different, as far as I know.
Do you mean 4 p.m. British summertime, or do you mean UTC?
This is what I'm saying. Let's add more clarity than to reduce clarity. So instead of saying 4 p.m. UTC, let's say 4 p.m. UTC, 9 a.m. PDT. I don't know, 6 p.m. European time. Like let's add 3 or 4 time zones so there's no ambiguity. I think that that's the only way to make this clear. Otherwise, because what I'm concerned with is that people will show up in the wrong time or miss this altogether.
Right.
So if anyone can help with the calculation there and add that to the meeting notes, that would be great. I don't even know what 4 p.m. UTC is, so I can't help.
4 p.m. UTC.
Maybe Google would know.
Yeah, I'll
CEST plus 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's European time.
I know the British time, so
European time plus 2. It's currently European time plus 2.
There we go. Perfect.
Got it.
All clarified.
Just added the times there.
Awesome. Thanks.
cool.
All right. So we've already covered SUMO development update and UX.
Excuse me, I wanted to say something that is actually for UX and for SUMO development, and that's about the visual design. David, did you drop off?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm just not seeing you anymore. Yeah, so what I wanted to mention is now we are in this final stage of design, so now we are implementing stuff. If you see something where you think this is totally not what I was expecting and we should definitely not go forward with that, now is the time to say something. Now is the time that we are we haven't implemented this yet. So speak up now, or what is the English saying for that?
For forever.
What's the
Or
deadline?
forever
Forever.
Yeah, forever. So when do we make a call? Like, are we talking today, tomorrow, this week?
Tomorrow. Tomorrow starts the new sprint. As soon as the new sprint starts, we could start implementing this any day.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
because I had some feedback that I relate to Michael. So I guess Michael, you
And I haven't looked
make
at
sure that we get that.
Brahms' new mock-ups from the weekend yet, so that's on my list of things to do today. But.
So everyone, please take a final look at the mock-ups for today, or that Brahms sent out this weekend. Take a look at it today.
Oh yeah.
Make sure that you submit feedback.
When you look at the, ignore everything that is on top and only look at the ones that Brahm has posted there. They are the updated ones. So only the latest ones from Brahm.
And a place to provide feedback, is that in the bug or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, that's in the bug. Everyone is
So everyone
listening in the bug.
Okay, wait. Is that bug listed in the...
It's under the UX
Yeah, it is.
762255.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else on UX? Let's take a look at the metrics. There's a question that we might want to deal with first, whether or not we're changing the definition of the knowledge-based helpfulness. Can we clarify that question?
Yeah, so basically the question is, so far we have measured the helpfulness for the English KB and all localized KBs in one measure. And the proposal is now to actually split that so that we have only the English KB displayed on the KPI dashboard, and the individual helpfulness is displayed on the localization dashboards for each localizer.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this during the work week. That we're not in control of the localization metric part of it. So we have a harder time actually seeing what changes we make in the product drives the helpfulness metric, because we're polluting it with data that we can't control. So even if Michael and Matt spends a significant amount of time to improve titles and content, we are basically blending that with a lot of localized articles that may or may not have been updated, may or may not stick to the same conventions of names and keywords and summaries. So I think basically what we said during that meeting was we would change the KPI.
Yeah, I think the flip side of that argument is, and I think the reason that makes sense is to just go through and say, we don't have a very good, if localization is very important to us, we basically remove localization from the thing that we check every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we talk about coverage, but we no longer talk about localization quality. And maybe that's okay, but like we should keep that in mind is if we remove it from this view, it's basically saying we don't really care about it as an aspect of SUMO.
Right. Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily think that that's true, because what I know that what Rosanna has said is that she wants to come up with a better way of tracking localization success that looks at more things than just number of articles translated, for example. So I think that maybe so I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think that those two things are the same things. And the way I look at the knowledge base metric is basically the quality of the baseline that we're defining with ENUS. You know, we're defining, here's the information architecture, here are the articles that we need to have documented in the support website, here are the titles that we should use, here's the type of summary, the way we should structure the stuff, and we're making improvements and we're making changes. So I'd like to be able to see a needle that can track those type of things that we do. That isn't clouded by what may or may not happen in the localized version of those articles, because the fact of the matter is that localization is lagging behind the ENUS content. So I think it's not a statement that we don't care about localization. It's more about finding a way to have a better way of tracking our work that we do with English stuff and making sure that we're actually going in the right direction, which is very hard to do today with that metric. Matt?
I was going to say, and it'll also make it easier for us to do focused work on some of the other locales. So we may see that a particular locale has a pretty low quality score, and so maybe we decide, you know, we want to do more focused work there. And right now, we just can't tell any of that information. It's all just kind of muddled.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's me. I don't know if you can see me. I was just going to say I totally agree. I think that on the first, I mean, on there's just this one thing is about, you know, the coverage, which is something that we can keep as it is, but maybe we need to define a better metric for success. You know, how fast we can you know, translate the new articles for a new update. And I definitely agree with Matt. I think that we need to know how good our English articles are doing on general. To have like sort of clean data, and then absolutely afterwards we can take a look at, you know, how helpful the articles in other languages are, and then, you know, try to tackle those issues there. So I totally agree with you.
So the assumption is when localizers are basically taking the English article and translating that. So if it's helpful in the English version, the assumption is that it will probably be helpful in the localized version too. But if you don't have clear numbers for the English one, I guess it's hard to tell whether that's true or not.
Well, and also
yeah, that's the issue.
So
That's the exact issue. That today we can't even tell what the changes that we make in the English article, what effect that has, because we're looking at not the English, the quality of the English article. We're looking at the quality of the whole knowledge base with all articles. And so we're missing. It's like you listen to a signal and then you mix it with a lot of noise, and that's just not a good way of measuring things. So again, I don't think it's a reflection of us deprioritizing localization in any way. In fact, I think it's a matter of making sure that we can maximize the efficiency of our self-service, because that will benefit localizers in the end. And at the end of the day, we will have a better leverage when we say to them that, hey, you guys should also change the titles because we did that and it had a significant impact. That's the kind of metric that I would like to be able to communicate to localizers. But then Rosanna is right. We need another way of measuring the localization metrics that doesn't just look at quantity. And maybe the solution is just to have a separate helpfulness metric for localization. But I think we still need to separate those two things. I think Michael and then Ebi and then Matt, I think. Michael Ebi.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we still collect the data about locales in a place besides or in addition to individual localization dashboards? Because then it makes it impossible to get an overview. So if you wanted to see like, how are locales doing? Are there locales with higher helpfulness than English, lower helpfulness, or whatever? There's no one place to look at that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think we should have that. I mean, ideally, we'd be able to break it down by all locales, but that's no longer a KPI dashboard.
Right.
Like for me, the dashboard is summarizing the high-level stuff that we should be working and prioritizing our work against.
Yeah,
so that's what I mean with why I think it's important to filter out the noise.
So I have a couple of points, and so I don't necessarily agree that English is a good reflection. Also, if an article helps in English, it's going to help in all the other languages. It's probably true in the majority of the cases, but it's not one-to-one. The same way as some articles are more popular in some languages because of the type of usage. Maybe some countries, some markets are really heavy on Flash usage, so the content of those type of articles it's bigger and sometimes it's not as relevant. So there are a lot of factors, small factors of how the markets are shaped that will affect this. And then
Ebi, just to quickly comment on that. I don't think that I'm making that assessment or statement that we can draw conclusions from English to other locales. I don't think that was actually said.
No, so let me finish my argument. I
thought you said B, so that's why I intervened. I thought you were going to talk about the next point. Sorry.
It's just an argument based on several points. And I just lost the track. The other point is like the biggest impact in this metric is still English. So still all the changes that we do in English have a big response on this number that we have. And the last point is that I don't necessarily disagree on having this association on English and the rest, but I think that shouldn't be at a KPI level. That should be more at the actionable level of other metrics. But at the KPI, at the how we are doing, we need to look at the overall number to have an understanding. Okay, so we have this helpfulness and this amount of visits overall, instead of looking into all the languages at every week. I mean, if something goes wrong with the helpfulness, then we dig into, oh, it's English articles or it's other languages articles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess, but wouldn't that be the CSAT survey that we're implementing? Wouldn't that take care of that final big overview of here's how many people we help, here's how many people we move, without having to cloud the KPI? Because I mean, I think also a KPI needs to be actionable in the sense that, or not maybe actionable, but it should be a clear indication of that the work that we're doing is having a positive or negative impact. And so in this case, we might even want to, ideally, the way I see, the way I'd approach a KPI is that I want to be able to set a goal around that KPI. I want to say, I want to move this needle from X to Y. And if you have noise or factors, I don't try to demean localization by calling it noise, but what I mean is a factor that we cannot affect is what I'm saying.
But the thing that we can affect it, right?
Sure, but not in the same way. It's a fundamentally different activity. So we can say, hey, we're going to make these changes to the search engine and to the article titles and the summaries, and we believe that this will have an impact of X. But if we say we're gonna make this implementation in ENUS, but we're gonna measure the result for all locales, then we're actually we're failing to measure this properly. That's what I view as the flaw of this KPI, is that it's measuring two things that has two fundamentally different aspects of work and even different responsibilities in one KPI. And that's no longer a KPI in my opinion. That's a top level metric. And for that, I think we should be using the CSAT. Does that make sense? Do you see my point?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it makes sense, but I think that I disagree. We have like two different views on this topic, and I don't know. I'm not really sold on my idea, and I would like to hear more people.
Okay, Cheng. Looks like Cheng and Rosanna wants to talk. Cheng
okay,
first.
so I'm just responding to what you just said, David. So my confusion lies in the following. I wasn't confused before, but now I'm confused, which is to say that are we trying to decide whether, so what I'm hearing is two different things. One is from you, David, I'm hearing that the thing that we want to set goals around is English, right? So, and that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out, is that really what we want? Because the reason we want to use the knowledge base overall helpfulness, and this is just, hypothesis here, is if we want to do knowledge base overall as our KPI, and we want to improve it, if it has a bunch of factors, and we only do the English and English gets better, then my response is we're not doing enough, right? Like, if we're only doing English stuff, and the KPI gets a little bit better, but we could make it a lot better by trying to maybe extend to other locales or do other actions in other locales, then maybe we should be doing more stuff in other locales.
Okay, yeah, so can I respond to that?
Sure.
Or did you have more questions?
No, so my main question is the point we're trying to make, do we want the knowledge base as a whole to get better, or do we want the English knowledge base to get better? And that should be the thing we're measuring. And that's, I think, the fundamental question we should figure out.
Okay, so let me try to answer that. I definitely think that we want to move the needle for all of the locales. We want to improve, we want to help users. So naturally we want to reach as many people as possible. And maybe I'm failing to communicate this because I don't think that what I'm saying is in conflict with that. I absolutely think that we should focus on all locales. What I do think is that in order to understand what has the biggest impact on our activities that we do, we need to look at the English content as the place to experiment. And that's in fact what we're doing today. We're experimenting in the ENUS, we're making changes in that locale first, and then in theory, we should be able to see what impact that has before we start to work on activities to scale that to all other locales. And the fact is that is a different. Wait, so let me finish. That is a different activity. So what? Because at the end of the day, we have a content manager that is paid, part of the paid staff, and is working on things like improving the content or the summaries or the keywords or whatever that might move the needle. And so how can we with confidence say that we made the relevant improvements so that we feel comfortable talking to localizers that they should do the same? I would say that the answer to that is we need to look at the English needle in order to see what impacts our activities have before we start to draw a conclusion that now we need to do this for every other locale. But maybe this is really a question about the KPI or not. Yeah, but I haven't finished, Rosanna. Sorry. I just need to respond to his question. So maybe this isn't really about what we should use as a KPI, but more of a realization that we need to be able to look at the English. We need to be able to isolate the English results before we start to move this over to other locales. So maybe it is a KPI at a lower level. I don't know about that, but I think absolutely we need to look at that. We're having too much noise in the KPI today. Rosanna.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that first, I agree with Cheng and Ibai on the fact that our KPI should be the overall helpfulness. But I also agree with you, David, that we need to know how we're doing only on the English KB. If the changes that we're doing, if they're actually having an impact if we're seeing changes there, if we're moving the metrics. So I think that we definitely need to track this, but in my opinion, the overall helpfulness should be, with the locales. What we have to do, I don't know if you want to make like a subset of KPIs. I don't know how you want to see it, but I definitely think that it is necessary to start measuring the helpfulness only from the English KPI. But my opinion is that the overall helpfulness is what should be our KPI. How we're going to change it afterwards, we need to see how we can implement programs to help locals change it. But like my point is, yes, let's measure that. But I think that the KPI should remain as it is now.
Yeah, then I think we're halfway there. I mean, we're 90% done because so one analogy that might be useful is to think of English as Aurora, and then think of the whole user base as the release channel. So we're doing some experimentation on Aurora, and it's good to detect if we're making a change for the better or change for the worse in that channel first, before we start to say, hey, every localizer, please go and do exactly the same stuff as we did with English, because these are improvements. So yeah, maybe we can look at that at just a lower level KPI. But I think it's kind of the same thing that we're doing experiments on ENUS, and then we're kind of extrapolating that to the rest of the population. But that doesn't change the fact that it's important to work on all the other locales. So Matt, and then Ibai.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the way I see this is pretty similar to the CSAT kind of pyramid that we put together. So we definitely want to know how well are we doing across the board, every locale, right? But to change that, to move the needle on that, overall score, we need to be able to see the individual locales themselves, so we can see, where does the problem lie, where do we really need to improve on. So I think that's kind of the argument that David has, is if we're only looking at everything across the board, we don't know where the problems lie. But if we can look at each locale individually, those are more actionable metrics than our overall score. So we definitely want to keep an eye on the overall score, and it's not that other locales are not important, but we need to break them up so that we can find out where can we actually take action. Is that a pretty good synopsis, David?
Yeah, I think so. And I would say that I would be fine with keeping the combined score as the KPI, as long as we have a way of breaking it down by locale, and it's more importantly for us, English, and also be able to set goals around that. Because I would feel more comfortable if the majority of Michael and Matt's work for a quarter is to make significant improvements on the English content. I don't want to use the overall KPI for helpfulness to track the success of that goal, because that's not an accurate way of measuring it. So yeah, I think you did capture it well, Matt, and we need to figure out exactly where this would fit in. I don't know if this is on the KPI dashboard or if it's somewhere else. If we have but one way or another, we should be able to track it on a locale by locale basis, and we should be able to define goals around that. So, Ibai.
Yeah, so I think that we all agree that it's important to have two visions. I think that the fundamental disagreement here is if the lower level one are a KPI or not. And the understanding of at least what I'm hearing from Cheng, Rosanna, and myself is that KPIs are the ultimate goals of SUMO. And going back to your example of Aurora and release, is at the end of the day, yes, we track a lot of stuff in Aurora, but the Mozilla goals are related to the release channel. We care to a certain extent of how successful Aurora is, but towards being successful on release and not necessarily being successful on Aurora. In this case, I say it the same way. It's like, let's have both metrics. Maybe Matt and Michael are working towards a goal on half a metric. Yeah, but that's not the KPI. That's their goal. The KPI is the work of Michael, Matt, plus Rosanna and the community, and how that comes together as an overall helpfulness. I don't really think that, and this is going back to change your description.
Sorry, Ibai, I just want to break in. I just want to break in and say that that's actually the reason why I used the Aurora analogy, was to support your argument. So just to take off the fundamental disagreement part of your comment. I think we're actually in agreement.
Okay, that's good. So going back to Cheng's point is, I don't think that just by improving what Michael and Matt are doing and improving the situation in English US, we can say, hey, we're doing a great job because we're moving this needle. If we don't move the ultimate goal, that is that everyone coming and everyone reading articles in any language are having a kick-ass experience. And that's the job of the English US plus the localizers. And that's what the KPI reflects. The KPI reflects the ultimate goals split in 5, 6 different areas that we are working on.
Yeah,
make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And so I think we're pretty much on the same page here. We need better ways to track our activities, our specific activities for specific projects.
Yes.
But ultimately, we are trying to do the overarching goal is to help users, and there's no way for us to win that fight without localization. So we need to have that part reflected in the KPI. I think we're on the same page. Michael, do you have anything?
One last thing. I think this is a great discussion.
And you might want to mute too, unless you want us to be lip readers.
I want to say thank you. There's a good discussion. I think I'm on board with this whole thing. And one thing I think that's important is, like, had we had this distinction earlier, for instance, the thing that I recognize that we totally missed was, although we've been tracking all these flash issues and we wrote some new articles, and luckily most of our top locales got on it and they localized those articles. Like, the one thing that didn't occur was like, oh my gosh, we should really make this a big priority. Like, we need to have a special communication with localizers, for instance, that this is the biggest issue, and please, you should make it a priority to localize these articles, as opposed to localizing any, hey, this is look at the URL bars different now, kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's tracking the thing as a whole is good for that, and understanding that that's the whole knowledge base, all locales, that helps.
Yeah. So the next steps, I think, is to figure out what would be the appropriate way of tracking the per locale KPI here. I don't know. Like, I think we need to figure out how that would actually feed into the KPI dashboard. Whether it's a KPI dashboard thing or if it's something that we look at on the side.
So Dave,
one of
my projects for this quarter is putting together like a more actionable weekly dashboard. So it could be something like that. So it could be included in the weekly dashboard. We just get specific locale helpfulness or something like that.
So you were saying that you will help figure that out?
Yeah, so I'll add that to the list of things that we want to put on there. So my ultimate goal is, so right now, again, so the KPIs are how well are we doing, from a overarching point of view, but they aren't very actionable because they're these big kind of broad numbers, right? So my goal is to put together like a weekly dashboard that gets sent out of more actionable metrics. So, this is the article helpfulness rating for ENUS. That's something we can take action on, right? This is our click-through rate for ENUS, and these are the searches with, pull-throughs. Like, those are actionable things that we can take action on to then change or move the needle on our overall KPIs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can add this to that list as well and work with Kadir about trying to get that put in there. I mean, if everybody thinks that that's a good place to put it. Yeah.
Sounds good to me, for sure. Rosanna, did you have anything?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add that I think that, having this helpfulness metric for each locale would be something that, every locale, every localizer or every locale leader should be able to see in the dashboard. I think that's a great place, because this is actually something that's going to help them. So it's not only about me controlling that somewhere, in a picture or whatever, but I think that it should be also something that the localizers can see themselves. And in that, along those lines, I just wanted to say that we need to adapt our LTN coverage to our dashboard, because what we localizers like the top 20 articles, but we actually measured top 50 articles. I know that doesn't make like a big difference if you look at the traffic of the articles, but still, those are like small tweaks that we can do, try to figure out if we're going to put 50 in their dashboard or 20 in the LTN coverage. these are things that need to be figured out, or maybe like the how fast they've been updating the articles for each Firefox update. Those are things that we can think about. So I definitely think that this is something that could be very helpful for the localizers dashboard.
Yeah, I agree. And Rosanna, I know that you're working on actually making some decisions around how we measure the success of localization. So let us know how we can help, and let us know when you have a proposal that you're ready to share, and we can just talk about it either in the contributor forum or in this SUMO meeting, or wherever you prefer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we have. Did someone take notes on the next steps here?
No, I totally lost track. I don't know what exactly the next steps are. I think
the next steps are that Matt will work together with Kadir and whoever else wants to be involved to figure out how we can represent this in the KPI dashboard. Rosanna added that we want this to be visible for localizers because it's important that this is actually a motivator for them too, to see how they're performing and identify things that they should improve in terms of the quality and not just in the quantity of their work. Okay.
Something I thought of. Oh, sorry.
Michael, Michelle.
Maybe for a future KB meeting, we can talk about the issue you brought up, because I find this with Firefox for Android too, where sort of like this balance between new features and emerging bad things, and what gets the priority for documentation, and maybe we can, have a discussion of that, and have some other outcomes, some other next steps to where we make those decisions and how we communicate them out to the community. And say like, you know what, we're really not doing feature documentation this week because we have bad things that happened that we're documenting instead, and ways to better automate communication about that. I know we had the emerging issues team idea, but maybe we can talk more about other ways of doing emerging issues and helping everyone to know what the priority is on a sort of weekly or bi-weekly cadence.
Michelle, did you want to formalize that as a proposal, or do you want us to open a discussion? I'm trying to figure out what an action item for this is.
Let's just put it into the KB
as
meeting,
a discussion item.
Thursday KB, an upcoming one.
Sounds good.
Is that okay, Michael?
Or he's ignoring us.
I'm writing that note. I'm writing that down.
He's writing.
So that I can add it to the...
Writing with a pen.
Writing with a pen.
Yeah, we still can't hear you, Michael, but... Yes.
Sorry, I muted myself and Anyway, yes, I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Can you guys hear David?
Yes, we can hear David.
It's just me. I can't
hear. Next one is community, but it's empty.
I mean, I think everything else is just status updates. Is there anything that people want to actually talk about? I think let's just speed that up that way.
Say just real quick, 1401 is unthrottled now, so we've opened the floodgates. So we'll probably see a lot more people coming out on 1401. Big thing we're tracking right now is this Netflix issue on Mac. We're still unable to reproduce it internally, but we've gathered a lot of information around it. So we're reaching out to the appropriate parties. Hopefully we'll get some traction there. And then Chang, I think you had an update you wanted to give.
On Flash. I'll give that at the end if there's any. I just wanted to see if there's anything else that needs to be talked about before I do it.
Yeah, there's one thing, but it's in the support forum category. I don't know if you want to go first.
No, just go first. Just go through.
Okay, yeah, it's about the helpfulness there and what we want to do about that. So now we have the information that we had help about, so it's always over 85%. It's mostly even over 90% of the people that we help within 24 hours. So the question is, do we want to push that further? Is it worth it to spend more resources on that, or whether we should spend resources on something else? And I guess one part of that, so this comes from an email that we should look into whether the remaining part is even actionable or not. I think that's the first thing to do. And maybe
85.
No, actually, it's always over 85, but it's sometimes, or a lot of times, it's even over 90, 95, or even over that.
Yep.
So, actually, yeah, no, it's fine because like this thing actually, it was me who actually wrote it down on the Etherpad about the 24-hour response rate. So I don't have like the, I don't know, the ultimate solution right now, but I think this is something that we need to discuss. Can we do it? And if so, how can we do it? Because if we decide to actually do this and to grow the help that we give within the 24 hours, then we need to change a few things. For example, if we really want to do this, then we will need to look at the way we track everything, because the KPI right now only tracks the 72 hours and all that. So I think it's a bigger discussion here on how we can do it, because I don't think it's like the perfect solution right now. We should also look at the types of questions that we get. This is something that I know Tyler has been working on again. What are the reasons why some of the questions are not answered? Is it because they're too hard, or is it because people don't have time for them? Or, you know, there are like loads of factors that need to be taken into consideration, I think, before we reach the decision.
Did it. So that was one of my items that I was going to do this week, is go through, relook at those more difficult unanswered questions on the thread forums. The past 2 or 3 weeks, the response rate has gone down some. Try to figure out if there's any correlation and anything we can figure out from there. And then either end of this week, beginning of next week, any of the stakeholders in the forums, I wanted to set up a discussion meeting around that. But it does look like some of the situation's a little bit different, and that's something I was going to talk about. So.
Yeah. So next steps are setting up a meeting about this, or are you
providing? Sorry.
Pretty much the next steps, I'm going to go through. I have some more work I need to do, so I'll have that done mid this week, and then I'm going to send out a meeting and set that up. If anyone wants to be involved with that, let me know. I'm assuming Madalena, of course, and Rosanna. I don't know if you want to be in that, but anyone else who wants to, just let me know, and I'll just try to find a time that works for everybody. So.
Okay.
And that'll probably be early next week.
Sounds good. Last item, Cheng.
Okay, so really quickly, I've been trying to type up the update, but it's probably easier just for me to say it. A quick update on Flash. 2.6.8 released on Friday. That's 2 or 3 days ago. It should be better on crashiness, but the point is it might not mean that users can watch videos, because it might be replacing all the crashiness with hangs. Just, I don't know. But it does seem to have a performance problem, so I would say that my answer to the question of should we recommend it, relative to if they're already on a broken version of Flash, they might as well update to it and give it a shot. If they're not yet on a broken version of Flash, I would say don't bother. The other point I wanted to make was that we are waiting to hear back from Black Hat. Black Hat was this past weekend. And some stuff, there is a little bit of talk about some stuff coming from there, which could influence our ability, what we recommend to users. Let's put it that way.
Cheng.
So, That's also going to be. Sorry.
What do you mean by if users are on a broken version of Flash?
So if they were on like 2.6.5, then sure, they could try the update and see if it works. But if they've already gone to 10.3 or 11.2, the new one is not going to be better than those.
But in our articles where they're like, okay, Flash is crashing, are we going to, do we need to say update first? If the update doesn't work, then downgrade? No. Okay.
Leave your articles the way they are. I would just kind of as a, if people, I mean, in some ways, you can kind of say, like, this might be better, like maybe a little note that says the other thing to do is Flash, just kind of know this is Flash is constantly pushing updates, and, they're working on this problem. Right? I wouldn't say totally change our articles or say you have to do this first before you do the other ones, but maybe a note that says, you can give this a shot if you want, and it will help, but these are the ways to get off of that entirely.
All the other Flash articles are about keeping Flash updated, and they point to the latest version, so there's that.
Right. So that's essentially that story. I'm trying to figure out this Black Hat thing because there's a bunch of email on the security list about what's going on there. So I will update you when I figure out if it's related to Flash or not, which is the first part.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Any questions? Any follow-up questions on Flash? No? Done.
All right.
Good meeting. Thanks, everyone. See you online. Hey.